So we're gonna start by taking the serpentine belt off. I have a ratchet on here with a 16 millimeter or a 5/8, and we're gonna release the tension on this. And this belt is a double ribbed belt, so it's ribbed on both sides. So it's kind of weird. So we're gonna try and get this belt off on this thing. And all right, so we're just gonna roll that off for now. Take this off, and you know, all you guys got your phones out there, so you know, you got to take a picture of where this belt is routing, then you should do so. And we're going to take the rest of the stuff off. So just for now, we're just going to kick this to the side. We're going to disconnect the battery, obviously, before we do that. I have a 9/16 wrench to take off the cable, and then there's this one has a 3/4 inch wrench to disconnect the negative. So we've got the battery disconnected. We're gonna set our stuff up here. So we're gonna take the petcock out, and you can see it, it's right over here. We're gonna crack it loose and drain the coolant.
I'm afraid.
Yo, I'm one standing there.
I'm right behind you, buddy.
All right, it's out, it's draining. All right, let it drain slowly, put it back down. We'll crack the radiator cap, and it should increase. Maybe we won't make a mess today, we'll see.
Well, we're gonna make a mess.
We're gonna remove the ductwork and start unplugging the electrical connectors and get the harness out of the way. I'm gonna start over here, we'll unplug our sensor here. We got a 5/16 little one clamp here. Got one over here. Put this on our floor with the rest of our miscellaneous parts. We're also going to be changing the hoses on this thing, so we're going to tuck some stuff out of the way. Okay, we got to remember that this thing gets tucked underneath this power steering pump. Just going to sit this over here on the side so it's out of our face. Yeah, this one's a little difficult to get to here. We got one down here that we're gonna get off with the pocket screwdriver. And these are all, you know, different plugs, so you're not gonna really mess anything up here. There it goes. Okay, we got that one off. Now, we're going to be removing this one and this one, and because we're going there, we might as well just do them now. We'll get these removed now, and we got our hose pick set up, and all right, this one broke off there. So now we're replacing all of this, and Tony bought all new hoses. So we can assemble this on the bench. We know the way our clamps are going, so that this will be all pre-set up so that we can just toss this back on. So we're removing the water pump right now, and we're gonna change the thermostat and housing on the bench. But I got 4 9/16 bolts to take off, one here and one down here, and then we got one here and one over here. And that'll take the water pump off. Right now we're gonna slip the belt off. We have our belt diagram over here on the thing, so we don't have to write anything down. We've got one right here. So we're gonna slip the belt off of this thing right now. Seems Tony got a new one, and we'll get that out of our way. Now we're gonna get a short 9/16 to finish pulling this one out. There's only 4 bolts holding this thing on. We had our coil wire over here pulled up out of the way. It goes behind the water pump onto the OptiSpark. So we're just about ready to get this pump off and take this bolt off. We can pull this assembly off. So we got one bolt that's buried down underneath here for the water pump. There's 6 that hold this on, and they're 9/16. I have a 3-inch extension with a little 1-inch wobbly on it. Yeah. All right, we got everything off. Should be no excuse for it not coming off now.
Shoes.
Hear all that coolant draining into that tray? Not on my floor.
A 30-year-old fool, probably.
It's tight coming out, huh? Oh, why wouldn't it be?
Catching on a bolt right here. And you see a sensor in the front of it.
So we remove the pump, and this little shaft is driven down here to turn this pump. It's not driven by a belt, and the seal is blown out. Here's the new one. So we're going to clean this up, and this is apparently can go either way. So we're going to wire wheel the outside of that so it's nice and clean. But it's got a spline on the inside, and it's set back in the same amount on each side. So we'll clean this up, and this goes on, and this is what drives the water pump. And it looks like there's a couple of ball bearings. Well, actually about 6 of them missing, and the seal is gone. So this thing was leaking. It's coming apart, and this looks like this came off of here too. So, yep, all right. So we got our new water pump. We transferred over the thermostat housing, put a new thermostat in. It's got a couple of 5/16 bolts. And then we changed the temp sensor over on the bottom here. Put that in there, a little new thread sealant on it. And plug condition is good, so we'll go with that. And then we put a little light coating of grease on for our gaskets. And we have our shaft socket here on here, which is the drive. This comes right off, and we elected to put it on the water pump side, and we're going to slide it on. And that's driven by a sprocket in the timing cover that's going to turn the water pump. There is no pulley on the front of this pump. So we have all our bolts cleaned up here. We're going to slide our bolts in here, slide them through. And we're going to just try and get these 4 on first, and then we'll put the 2 short ones in last. And these are 9/16 bolts. We're going to catch these all by hand. And after we catch these by hand, we'll tighten them all up with, say, the ratchet. And we'll put our short bolts on, like I said last. So we're going to go over and mount this right now. Down here gingerly. Now there's a couple of pins on the water pump here that they guide onto here. You got one here and one here, and that's pretty sweet. And now we got to catch these bolts. I'm using a 3/8 3-inch extension with a 9/16 shallow socket, and it's giving me just enough room to get in on this side. And this may change on this top one over here. The bottom one I can get it in here. The pins that are in the timing cover are nice. That helps you really line this thing up. And I'm gonna grab my 2 short bolts now and get those in place. And then I can use a 1-inch extension. I'm catching this one by my fingers right now. And we're gonna catch the 2 short ones here. I'm going to use a swivel socket on this one. So we're showing you the mirror here to look through there to see the bolts for the tensioner where it's going to mount on to the front timing cover. And once I get my hand in there, you're not going to be able to see anything. So it's showing you the 2 holes there. The bottom hole is for the alignment dowel. The center hole is for the bolt to thread into. So we're going to go slip that in right now. We finagled the tension down in place. lined up the pin, and it rolled down into place, and kind of tough. We almost better off if you would have had a little pry bar down here just holding this up in place so that you could get your second hand in there to thread the bolt. But it's a 9/16 bolt, and we got that nice and tight right now, and we're good. Tension is back installed, and we got the water pump on. And one more thing we wanted to talk about with the water pump was the shaft on the water pump that had that little extension. Tony can see it on this side down in here. We had a little grease on that, but the alignment pins that they give you on the timing cover just allowed that to slide together like nothing. So that went together really, really easy for us. You didn't even know that it was sliding on in place, and everything fell into place for us. So one of the easy things that happened for us on this job. So we tightened up the 6 water pump bolts on this thing, and we used a little short 1-inch extension over here. And then we got the 3-inch extension with the 9/16 shallow socket on. We tightened the 3 bolts. We tightened the 2 long ones first, then these 2, and went back and retightened them all. The bottom bolt here, the small one on the inside, the short one, we had to use the 3-inch extension with the 1-inch wobble with the 9/16 to get in there to tighten it up. We snugged them all up evenly, and the water pump is all ready to go. So that's good. So we have our belt routing down here, and Tony is so confident this belt's gonna fit, he didn't even try and match it up with the other one. So I'm going with it, all right? So if we get halfway in there and it don't fit, it's his fault.
I'm gonna hang myself with it.
It goes around the crank, and it goes around the idler pulley here. So it's showing you your routing. So everything goes around the crank, and then it's gonna ride underneath this. So let's slip this down around the crank. And I know it was really tight on that side down there.
Everything on this car is tight.
Yeah, it has been very, very tight. So, that down on the crank there. And it's a double-sided belt, and this runs around on this side down below the sensor here. And it's going to go below the power steering pulley here, like such. And then this one rides on top of the tensioner here. No, it rides below the tensioner. It goes like this. So it has to go around the crank, and then I'm gonna squeak this around the compressor here. Man, the lines are so friggin' tight. Okay, and then this went around that. There. This rode on top of that tensioner like that. Man, it almost looks like the picture does. Oh. All right, so we got it around everything. Now we just got to get our tool on this tensioner. All right. Okay, this has to go underneath the tensioner on the crankshaft, so that ain't right. So let's move that. This one has to go underneath the tensioner. I think that's about right.
A little slack on this one, Steve.
There you go.
See it?
A little slack where?
On the other side of the crank. I think once you pull it, it'll...
Yeah. All right, so now when I lift up on it, I can roll this up over the alternator here. Yeah, it's right at the end, huh?
Go ahead and hold it off.
I can try them around. Everything good. Yeah, it's just tight as hell. Are you on this pulley right?
Huh?
Yeah, it feels like it.
Yeah, you're around there, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead and push on the bottom, the tensioner for you.
Yeah, if you can. All right, so we had a hard time getting it over the alternator and must have had it off of just one of the belts, one of the grooves a little bit. And Tony helped me, pull on it, and we pulled this over here and rolled it over the power steering pump last. It should have rolled over this one last, but it's a new belt. It's probably a little stiff, so we got it all on place right now. And that's the routing, and it shows you on the sticker over here for the routing. Tony took a picture of that. So when we go to start this thing up, we'll just click it, make sure everything's turning nice and smooth before it fires off. And everything looks good with it. So the belt's on. Our harness down here, this plugs into our temp sensor for our water pump.
Tighten up the air cleaner and put some new antifreeze in it, and she's running great. Hope you guys like the video.